Good afternoon. This is All India Radio. I'm Anuja Kumar, and with me is Vaibhav J. Srivastav with the Midday News. The headlines. Voting for first phase of assembly elections underway in 38 constituencies in Manipur. India abstains from voting in UN Security Council to convene an emergency General Assembly session on Ukraine situation. Emergency session to be held tonight. Center to send 4 cabinet ministers to coordinate evacuation mission to neighboring countries of Ukraine. Government is assessing the impact of the ongoing Ukraine crisis on exports, says Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses post-budget webinar on vision of Gati Shakti, says this year's budget set the Gati Shakti of India's development in 21st century. Regular international flights to remain suspended till further orders. More than 177 crore 50 lakh COVID vaccine doses administered under nationwide vaccination drive so far. Recovery rate is currently at 98.56%. National Science Day being celebrated today to commemorate the discovery of the Raman effect. And in cricket, India defeats Sri Lanka by 6 wickets in third T20 match at Dharamshala, whitewashed the series 3-0. With the new Omicron variant of coronavirus causing concern, we appeal to our listeners to be vigilant and get fully vaccinated and also help others, including children between 15 and 18 years, to get vaccinated. Please continue to follow these 3 simple steps to stay safe. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki doori for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. In the poll-bound Manipur, polling for the first phase of assembly elections is progressing smoothly. The polling will be conducted till 4 p.m. in the 38 assembly constituencies spread over 6 districts going to polls today. The state is witnessing a 2-phase election. The average voter turnout registered till 1 p.m. in this phase was 48.88%. 2 major bodies of United Nations, General Assembly and Security Council, are holding separate meetings today to discuss Russia's invasion of Ukraine, reflecting widespread demands for a ceasefire and escalating concern for the Ukrainians. UNGA President Abdullah Shahid will preside over the 11th Emergency Special Session of the General Assembly at the UN headquarters in New York later tonight. The UN Security Council voted last night to hold the Special Emergency Session of UNGA. India abstained from voting on the resolution. Russia voted against it, and 11 UNSC members voted in favor of it. Given the vote was procedural, no country had a veto, and the resolution was adopted. China and the United Arab Emirates also abstained. India said it is regrettable that the situation in Ukraine has worsened further since the Council last convened on this matter. India's permanent representative to the UN, T.S. Tirumurthy, said India reiterates its call for immediate cessation of violation and an end to all hostilities. He said there is no other choice but to return back to the path of diplomacy and dialogue.
It is regrettable that the situation in Ukraine has worsened further since the Council last convened on this matter. We reiterate our call for immediate cessation of violence and an end to all hostilities. There is no other choice but to return back to the path of diplomacy and dialogue. Our Prime Minister has advocated this strongly in his recent conversations with the leadership of the Russian Federation and Ukraine. In this regard, we welcome the announcement by both sides to hold talks at the Belarus border. The global order is anchored on international law, UN Charter, and respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty of all states. We are all agreed on these principles. We continue to be deeply concerned about the safety and security of Indian nationals, including a large number of Indian students who are still stranded in Ukraine. Our evacuation efforts have been adversely impacted by the complex and uncertain situation at the border crossing. It is important to maintain an uninterrupted and predictable movement of people. It is an urgent humanitarian necessity that that must be immediately addressed. Taking into consideration the totality of circumstances, we decided to abstain.
4 cabinet ministers, Hardeep Singh Puri, Jyotiraditya Scindia, Kiran Rijiju and General V.K. Singh will be travelling to neighbouring countries of Ukraine to coordinate the evacuation and help stranded students in the conflict region. The decision was taken at a high-level meeting on the Ukraine crisis chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi today. Our correspondent, quoting official sources, reports these ministers will be going as special envoys of India. Immediately on his return from Uttar Pradesh, the Prime Minister held a high-level meeting yesterday on the Ukraine issue. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the government will do whatever possible to bring back all the citizens stranded in Ukraine.
The 6th Operation Ganga flight from Budapest, Hungary has taken off. In a tweet, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said that it is bringing back 240 Indian nationals to Delhi. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said the government is assessing the impact of the ongoing Ukraine crisis on the Indian exports. In a post-budget interaction with industrialists from Tamil Nadu in Chennai today, she said the government is seized on the matter and is consulting all the departments relating to imports and exports. She said once the consultation process is over, the Finance Ministry would come out with a definitive response on how to tackle the situation and help the import and export sectors. Ms. Sitharaman said exports to Russia and Ukraine are being affected, especially the agricultural products, more than the imports from the region. She said the sector is facing hurdles in exporting the farm producers to fulfill the order commitments and also in getting payments for those goods that have already been delivered.
Aviation regulator DGCA today said regular international flights will remain suspended to and from the country till further orders. However, this restriction shall not apply to international all-cargo operations and flights specifically approved by DGCA. International flights have been suspended in India since March 23, 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. However, special passenger flights have been functioning between India and around 40 countries since July 2020 under air bubble arrangements. The ban on scheduled international passenger flights in India was in effect till today. The Health Ministry has issued revised guidelines for international arrivals with effect from 14th of February, doing away with the mandatory 7-day home quarantine and the need for them to undertake an RT-PCR test on the 8th day.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that Union Budget 2022-23 has laid a roadmap for development of India of the 21st century. Addressing a webinar on the vision of Gati Shakti and its convergence with Union Budget 2022, the Prime Minister said,
इस साल के बजट ने 21वीं सदी के भारत के विकास की गति शक्ति निर्धारित कर दी है। इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर आधारित विकास की यह दिशा हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था के सामर्थ्य में असाधारण वृद्धि करेगी। इससे देश में रोजगार की भी अनेक संभावनाएं बनेगी।
He added that the scale on which the present government is working on infrastructure development, Prime Minister Gati Shakti is the biggest requirement for the country.
पीएम गति शक्ति के कारण अब हर कोई पूरी जानकारी के बीच अपनी योजना बना पाएगा। इससे देश के रिसोर्सेज का भी ऑप्टिमम यूटिलाइजेशन होगा। आज हमारी सरकार इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट पर काम कर रही है। उसमें पीएम गति शक्ति बहुत बड़ी हमारी एक आवश्यकता है, जो 22-23 में बढ़कर 7.5 लाख करोड़ रुपए हो गया है। नेशनल हाईवे हो, रेलवे हो, एयरवे, वाटरवे हो, ऑप्टिकल फाइबर कनेक्टिविटी हो, गैस ग्रिड हो, रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी हो, हर क्षेत्र में सरकार ने इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ाया है। इन क्षेत्रों में हमारी सरकार बहुत बड़े लक्ष्यों को लेकर आगे बढ़ रही है।
He mentioned that in this area the government is moving forward with big goals. Mr. Modi said that Prime Minister Gati Shakti will help make infrastructural planning, implementation and monitoring of work in a coordinated manner and will bring down time and cost overruns of the projects. The Prime Minister said infrastructure is the biggest multiplier effect of investment as it improves ease of living along with ease of business. To strengthen cooperative federalism, the Prime Minister said the government has decided to help state governments with the allocation of 1 lakh crore rupees and the state governments can use this to develop multimodal infrastructure.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address a post-budget webinar on technology-enabled development on 2nd of March. The Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, along with several scientific ministries and departments of Government of India, are organizing this webinar. It is a part of a series of webinars being organized by the Centre across various sectors to facilitate efficient implementation of announcements made in this year's Union Budget. The webinar will have thematic breakaway sessions having participants from ministries and departments, academia and industry. Australian Navy Chief Vice Admiral Michael Noonan called on Indian Army Chief General M.M. Naravane. They discussed ways to further strengthen defence cooperation between the two countries. More than 177 crore 50 lakh COVID vaccine doses have been administered in the country so far under the nationwide vaccination drive. Health Ministry said more than 4 lakh 90,000 doses were administered in the last 24 hours. The ministry said a total of 8,013 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. The recovery rate is currently at 98.56%.
Union Jal Shakti Minister Rajendra Prasad has chaired a regional conference of ministers of the Public Health Engineering Department, Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Department of the Northeastern States in Guwahati today. The regional conference has focused on important issues pertaining to implementation of Jal Jeevan Mission and Swachh Bharat Mission Grameen. Addressing the event, Mr. Shekhawat stressed on the sustainability of the water supply projects under Jal Jeevan Mission. He said that everyone should work to ensure that there would be no disruption in drinking water facilities. Assam PHE Minister Ranjit Kumar Das, among others, were also present on the program. Our correspondent reports that this event has set up the roadmap for the northeastern states, keeping in line with the guidance received from the Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia has said that Indian civil aviation sector has tremendous potential to become the backbone of transportation in the country. He said this sector not only represents huge potential for domestic requirements but for the global aviation industry. Addressing the 13th International Conference cum Awards on Civil Aviation Cargo with theme Driving Post-COVID Growth in New Delhi today, the minister said several positive measures have been taken by the government to address the challenges faced by the Indian aviation industry, including GST on aviation turbine fuel, ATF, new airports and capacity at existing airports, streamlining of freight management and others. Talking about the tremendous growth industry has achieved in terms of numbers of airports from 74 to 140 in last 8 years, he expressed confidence that aviation industry in the country may be having 1,000 to 2,000 fleets of aircraft in next 10 to 15 years. On the occasion, Mr. Scindia also gave away excellence awards in various categories to the airports, freight management agencies, ground handling agencies, training institutes and others. Our correspondent reports that the aim to this conference is to outline the prominent pain points that the industry is facing pre or post-pandemic and find specific solutions to relieve stress from civil aviation sector, make it self-sustainable and economically viable.
You are listening to the Midday News on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Voting for first phase of assembly elections underway in 38 constituencies in Manipur. India abstains from voting in UN Security Council to convene an emergency General Assembly session on Ukraine situation. Emergency session to be held tonight. Centre to send 4 cabinet ministers to coordinate evacuation mission to neighbouring countries of Ukraine. Government is assessing the impact of the ongoing Ukraine crisis on exports, says Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses post-budget webinar on vision of Gati Shakti. Says this year's budget set the Gati Shakti of India's development in the 21st century. Regular international flights should remain suspended till further orders. More than 177 crore 50 lakh COVID vaccine doses administered under nationwide vaccination drive so far. Recovery rate is currently at 98.56%. National Science Day being celebrated today to commemorate discovery of the Raman effect And in cricket, India defeats Sri Lanka by 6 wickets in the T20 match at Dharamshala, whitewashed the series 3-0. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
Welcome back to the Midday News on All India Radio. The high-pitched electoral campaign is reaching its peak on the penultimate day of electioneering for the sixth phase of assembly elections. The campaign for the last phase polling in Uttar Pradesh and second phase of polling in Manipur is going on in full swing. The sixth phase of polling in Uttar Pradesh will be conducted on Thursday in 57 assembly constituencies in 10 districts. The final picture of electoral battle shows that there are total 676 candidates in fray for 57 assembly seats. Earlier, over 57% voter turnout was registered during the fifth phase of polling yesterday in 61 assembly constituencies from 12 districts of Uttar Pradesh. With this, the political fate of 693 candidates in this phase was sealed into the electronic voting machines. In the second phase of assembly elections in Manipur, 22 seats spread over 10 districts will go to polls on the 5th of March, out of which 11 seats are reserved for the scheduled tribes. The seventh phase of polling in Uttar Pradesh will be conducted on 7th of next month in 54 assembly constituencies. The picture of electoral battle for the seventh and last phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh shows that there are total 613 candidates in fray for 54 assembly seats. In addition, the assembly by-election for the Majuli seat in Assam will also be held simultaneously, where there is a triangular contest on cards.
Today is the National Science Day. The day is celebrated every year on the 28th of February to commemorate the discovery of the Raman effect. On this day, Indian physicist Sir C.V. Raman announced the discovery of the Raman effect, for which he was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1930. In 1986, the Government of India designated 28th February as the National Science Day. The day is aimed at spreading the message of importance of science and its application in human life. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have greeted scientists on National Science Day today. In a tweet, Mr. Naidu has called upon the scientific community to put in concerted efforts to find solutions to the pressing problems of humanity and improve the quality of life of people. In a tweet, Mr. Modi said we should reaffirm our commitment towards fulfilling our collective scientific responsibility and leveraging the power of science for human progress. Union Minister of Science and Technology Dr. Jitendra Singh today stressed on the need for creating scientific temper among children at a very young age. Speaking at a function organized on the occasion of National Science Day, which coincided with the valedictory function of Vigyan Sarvatra Pujyate, Dr. Singh said there is a need to catch young talent among children of 15 years of age. He said if we work on that, then it will be a great service to the nation and the society. He said COVID pandemic has provided the country an opportunity to realize its potential. He added that it has also brought different departments and agencies to work together to find a solution. On the occasion, Dr. Singh also launched Inspire mobile app and Inspire Manak, an Intel collaborative program building AI readiness among young innovators on the occasion of National Science Day. He also gave away National Awards for Science and Technology Communication for the year 2021. Talking to AIR News, Dr. Suman Moore, Assistant Professor, Punjab University, working in the field of environment, who has received the prestigious award, said that it will motivate all of us to work better and create awareness among community for environment and health.
And now, let's listen to our special program, Azadi Ka Safar, highlighting the importance of the day during the freedom struggle.
Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav.
Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. Birth of a Nation. India's glorious freedom struggle is one of the greatest struggles the modern world has ever witnessed. AIR News brings you a glimpse of the struggle every day.
On the 28th of February 1948, the last batch of British soldiers left India. The withdrawal of British forces began on the 17th of August 1947, when the first army units and a large contingent of the Royal Air Force sailed from Bombay. Concluding the phased withdrawal, the 1st Battalion of the Somerset Light Infantry took out a ceremonial parade through the streets of Bombay and halted at the Gateway of India.
During the farewell ceremony, guards of honor were provided by the units of the newly formed Indian Army. Both the Indian and British military bands exchanged salutes and played the other's national anthem. The British were presented with parting gifts, an oil painting, the Indian tricolour, and a silver model of the Gateway of India.
Raja Maharaj Singh, the first post-independence governor of Bombay, read messages of farewell and good wishes from Lord Mountbatten and Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru.
To the tune of the popular farewell song Auld Lang Syne, translated from Scottish as "For old time's sake," the last of the British troops marched out through the Gateway of India and boarded the Empress of Australia for their journey home.
We pay tribute to freedom fighter and first President of sovereign India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who died on the 28th of February 1963. A supporter of Mahatma Gandhi, Prasad was imprisoned by British authorities during the Salt Satyagraha and the Quit India movement. Upon independence in 1947, he was elected as President of the Constituent Assembly of India. In 1950, he became the first President of India and encouraged the development of education in India. In 1957, Prasad was re-elected to the presidency, becoming the only president to serve 2 full terms. He stayed in office for the longest term of around 12 years and later set up new guidelines for parliamentarians, which are still followed. On his passing away, the entire nation mourned the loss, paying glowing tributes to his selfless life, devoted entirely to the service of the people of India. The then Speaker of Lok Sabha, Hukum Singh, had observed,
"A great freedom fighter and an ardent patriot. As President of the Constituent Assembly, he guided its deliberations with patience and foresight. He was the first President of India in very difficult and formative stages. An intellectual endowed with humility and humanism, he had worked among the poor and lowly and understood their difficulties. He maintained the dignity of the office and yet lived a simple and dedicated life. He laid foundations and established traditions worthy of the constitutional head of a state."
In the Rajya Sabha, its chairman, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, eulogized the noble qualities of Rajan Babu in the following words.
"It may be said of Rajendra Prasad, more truly than of anyone else, that he was a perfect gentleman, the embodiment of the best in Indian life, a symbol of the good Indian. His services to the nation have already become a saga in the history of the emancipation of our country."
We also remember Martyr Sursi, who died on the 28th of February 1858. She took part in the First War of Indian Independence of 1857 along with her son Bhim Nayak, a prominent Bhil leader of Nimar, Madhya Pradesh. Sursi was captured by the British troops near Saloda on the 8th of February 1859 following a serious encounter with troops at her command. She was imprisoned and tortured physically and mentally at Mandaleshwar Fort and died in detention on the 28th of February 1859. We salute the great freedom fighter.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. See you in the next episode tomorrow.
आजादी के आंदोलन के खजाने में ऐसे ढेरों शब्द जिन्होंने बदल दिए इतिहास, तारीख बदलने वाले लफ्जों पर आकाशवाणी समाचार प्रसारित कर रहा है विशेष कार्यक्रम धरोहर हर सोमवार।
The government has raised the compensation to the kin of victims of hit-and-run motor accidents to 2 lakh rupees in case of death, which is an 8-fold increase from the current cap of 25,000 rupees. In case of grievous injuries, the compensation to a person has been increased from 12,500 rupees to 50,000 rupees. Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has issued a notification saying that the scheme will be called the Compensation to Victims of Hit-and-Run Motor Accident Scheme 2022, and it will come into force from the 1st of April 2022. The export of guavas from India sees a growth of 260% since 2013. Exports grew from $0.58 million in April-January 2013-14 to $2.09 million in April 2021-22. Ministry of Commerce and Industry in a statement said that India's export of fresh fruits has also witnessed considerable growth. Fresh grapes is the largest exported item among all fresh food category. During 2020-21, the export value of fresh grapes was $314 million. During 2020-21, fresh grapes and other fresh fruits accounted for 92% in India's total export of fresh fruits.
In cricket, India defeated Sri Lanka last night by 6 wickets in the third and final T20 match in Dharamshala to clean sweep the series 3-0. India were off to an impressive start after Sri Lanka chose to bat first. Avesh Khan and Mohammad Siraj took 3 wickets each in the first 6 overs itself, with Ravi Bishnoi scarping 1 more. Sri Lanka was struggling at 29 for 4 in 8 overs. Dasun Shanaka then played the captain's knock with 74 runs off just 38 balls, taking the visitors' total to 146 for the loss of 5 wickets. The Sensex and the Nifty today added marginally in the afternoon trade. Both stocks gained amid mixed global cues. The BSE Sensex was trading above 55,950 points, while the NSE Nifty was trading above 16,700. The Sensex climbed 100 points or 1.8% to trade at 55,958.
Now let us take a look at the weather forecast for today. National capital will have a mainly clear sky. Temperature will vary between 11 and 25 degrees Celsius. Mumbai will have mainly clear sky. Minimum temperature was 21 degrees Celsius. Maximum will be around 32 degrees. Chennai is likely to have partly cloudy sky. Kolkata will have a partly cloudy sky with possibility of moderate rain or thunderstorm. Srinagar will have generally cloudy sky. Muzaffarabad will have generally cloudy sky. And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Voting for first phase of assembly elections underway in 38 constituencies in Manipur. India abstains from voting in UN Security Council to convene an emergency General Assembly session on Ukraine situation. Emergency session to be held tonight. Centre to send 4 cabinet ministers to coordinate evacuation mission to neighbouring countries of Ukraine. Government is assessing the impact of the ongoing Ukraine crisis on exports, says Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses post-budget webinar on vision of Gati Shakti, says this year's budget set the Gati Shakti of India's development in 21st century. Regular international flights to remain suspended till further orders. More than 177 crore 50 lakh COVID vaccine doses administered under nationwide vaccination drive so far. Recovery rate is currently at 98.56%. National Science Day being celebrated today to commemorate the discovery of the Raman effect. And in cricket, India defeats Sri Lanka by 6 wickets in third T20 match at Dharamshala, whitewashed the series 3-0. And with that, we end the midday news.